Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Furlong, and today we're talking about ecology. Today we're going to look at a very simplistic view of ecology, looking at some basic relationships within an ecosystem. So let's first give a definition for what ecology is. It's the study of the relationships among organisms and their environment. So what we are looking at here is a typical food web, and you can see that we have arrows, we have pictures of some plants and animals, and this is showing us not only the movement of energy from one organism to another, but we can also infer some relationships from them. We'll look at those relationships in another video. One thing we have to keep in mind is that these relationships are very complex. Ecology can be a very difficult science to study. Here is a diagram of a typical ecosystem. And you can see there's all sorts of things in this ecosystem. We can break all these things down into two categories, what we call the biotic factors and the abiotic factors. A biotic factor are all the living parts of an ecosystem. So as the name implies, bio means life. These are the living parts or things that were alive at one time. So let's go back to the diagram, and we can look at some of these biotic factors. Things like duckweed. Oh, we're going to be looking at some duckweed later on. The hawk, the willows, the frog, the snails that are on the water lilies, the carp. There's our bass. The copepods, little tiny creatures that are in the water, and so on. In fact, all of the things that are listed, those are all biotic factors. They're the plants and the animals, and they're bacteria, and they're the protists and the fungi. Those things make up all living things on Earth. But in this ecosystem, there's other things as well, things that are not alive. Those are what we call the abiotic factors. These are the physical parts of an ecosystem, or as I like to call the non-living parts. And I don't mean things that were alive, but things that were never alive. Typically, when we see the letter A starting out a word, that means non or without. So abio means non-life. So let's go back to this picture. There are several different abiotic factors in this picture. Some we can clearly see. For instance, there's water. Water is a very important abiotic factor in any ecosystem. If we look down towards the bottom, we can see things like the soil or rock. Right? Of course, the soil comes from the rocks. But there's other things that we can't see. Do you see them? Yeah, things like the air. Air is an extremely important part of an ecosystem. We have to have those. Now, these other things, they're not matter, but energy. We're getting things from the sun, things like the light and heat. Those are very important abiotic factors as well, and later on we'll talk about why that is so. So we just barely touched on these different types of relationships that take place in an ecosystem, and over time hopefully we'll develop a deeper understanding of how ecosystems work. Thank you.